I kind of fell into it a bit by accident, which is, I'm sure, what some parents don't want to know. But it was when my brother's wife fell pregnant. We were all told she was having a baby. It was announced at Christmas in 1994. So we were all expecting a big fat baby around about August. But she went in for her first scan. I think it was around February time, and the radar came up with three little blips. Turned out she was having triplets.
Oh, wow.
At the time, I was working overseas as a scuba diving instructor and a dive guide. And I got the message from my brother. And in those days, we didn't have, mobile phones and all the technology. So it took me a while to get back to him. But when I heard he was having three, we're a very close family. So I just desperately didn't want to be on the other side of the world. So I came back to the UK to be here in time for their birth. All the planets came together to make my life the usual sort of chaos that it is. I ended up working on a yacht down in Devon to be here for the summer when they were born. Halfway across the Irish Sea, I got appendicitis, so I was whisked off the boat, operated on in Ireland. Literally within days, the triplets were born back in the UK very early. So it just all came together that it ended up with me being back in England to recover, and then being on hand to help my little brother when they arrived. At that point, I had very little baby experience outside my own family, my little niece. But it's just like parenthood. You absolutely get thrown in the deep end. You don't know what you're doing, and you just all have to muddle through with any support and all the help that you can get from more experienced people. So that's kind of where I started out. And so I helped them probably for about 8 months or so, and I absolutely loved it. So I came back to London, to my home in London, and hooked up with some of the maternity agencies, and that was that. I did I think I did probably 5 or 6 years of living the traditional 24-hour maternity nannying, and then I kind of progressed up the ladder from there.
Oh, good. And so you as obviously when you talk to families, they come to you for help and advice. How do you feel? What do you do to calm things down? How do you go about introducing to yourself to family and being there for the first time?
Basically, when I'm approached by a client for the first time, I think it's important to have that initial conversation to see if we're going to be a good fit. So, you can't just fling any maternity nanny into any old household. It's such a fragile and open time that I think it's terribly important that the personalities all get on. So that's mum and dad and even grandparents. There can be friction in lots of different directions. So that initial conversation to make sure that my approach works for the family, and whatever it is that the family want to achieve is something that I support and back up. Because as I'm sure you're aware, there's lots of different approach to parenting styles, and it's not that one is more right or more wrong. It's just whatever works for you as a family. So that initial conversation will just make sure that I am the right girl for the job. And if I truly don't feel that I am, I will tell them at that point, I wish you the best with your journey, but I'm not the right girl for you. Speak to the agency a bit more in depth about what you're after.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. We talk to families, and as an agency, we're probably not the right agency for them. And it's integrity. I think it's about understanding that we have to get on, and you're dealing, especially with a family at the most vulnerable time. We have to introduce them. So it's about being honest, and it's not all about making money. It's all about making sure that family are comfortable and get the right advice. So the families you said, what sort of families have you dealt with?
Oh gosh, all sorts. I mean, literally, I've gone from families in London with 9 or 12 staff, with chefs and chauffeurs and cleaners and nannies for other children in the same household, older children. I've even worked where there's been me working 5 days a week with the baby, and then they have a night nanny for the baby, and then they have a weekend night nanny, and they have a weekend day nanny, so they are covered with the baby, covered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you have, every aspect of the household is covered. I've never been, I fit in with that, but I don't really enjoy that kind of placement. I'm more relaxed about my approach. And so I've worked with everything from, mums who are single mums by choice, mums who are single mums, where it wasn't exactly planned. I've had gay couples, female gay couples had a baby. But the majority, I think, of my clients are pretty standard, not massive houses, not loads of money. They're just people who've had a baby who are like rabbits in the headlights, and they just think, just need a bit of guidance. And particularly in London, it's families who perhaps their parents are in another country or 250 miles away in England, and so the granny and grandpa can't get there to give the support that they want. They just kind of need somebody who's a little bit one step removed from their own immediate connections, just to give them that little bit of encouragement and support that they need.
So what would you say as a parent when they talk to you for initially, how you said if it's not for you, it's not for you, but what sort of questions or what sort of things should they be asking you before they start?
I suppose what you're prepared to do as part of your job, because some of these jobs you go into and you get treated a bit like an au pair. Way back in the day when I said I was prepared to cook for the family, kind of what I had in mind was, a shepherd's pie for tired people in the evening, but suddenly found that I was actually producing a 3-course meal for 13 people in the evening.
Right.
It wasn't quite what I meant. And, when you're not getting a lot of sleep at night, certainly that doesn't, fall within the remit of a maternity nanny in my book. But that was a learning curve for me. That was just things that you need to highlight before you even start. So I always feel that when you're talking to a parent, or when I'm talking to a parent, I will list what my duties are. And obviously I will try and go the extra mile if I need to. And I'm not going to be one of those people I'm not going to put your husband's cup in the dishwasher because it's not my job. Quite honestly, when you've got a new baby, you just don't need that attitude. You just want someone who says, come on, let's roll up your sleeves, empty the dishwasher, let's put everybody's laundry on. But, I kind of draw the line at doing all the housework or ferrying other kids around.
Oh, but listen, so when you deal with parents, is it normally the first child they've had, or have they had many children? How do you?
Mostly the first child.
Yeah.
I very often go back to mums that I've worked with their first child. I go back for the second, third, and in fact this year I've got one coming up with the fourth.
Oh wow! So that's a recommendation in itself.
It is, and it's lovely because a lot of them go on to become really close personal friends. We're actually going on holiday with a couple that I worked with 12 years ago. We're going to go stay with them out in America. But it's that link of trust. I think when you form that with the first baby, obviously the parents know what they're doing second time round, but quite often there's a gap of 2, maybe 3 years between babies, and you know yourself probably, you forget. You're so busy. It's not like you've had 2 years off. You've just been dealing with day after day after day since the baby was born. So suddenly you've got a 3-year-old and you've got a new baby on the way, and you think, oh my God, I can't remember what I'm doing. Let's get Hattie back for a bit of a refresher, and to make sure that we get those same good habits put in place that we did first time round.
Yeah. Do you know what? You hit on it. I find things change, and the advice for parents is there's so much, especially now we're in the digital world, there's so many things that contradict everything. And I know as when I started out as a parent, which was a long time ago, we read books and did this and that, but there's always, do you ever get the parents that have a different opinion because they've read something? How do you handle that?
All the time. And because I've been doing this such a long time, I started off pre-internet. That makes me feel really old, but
you and me both, Hattie.
Half honest, isn't it? Yeah. But it's yes, I mean, back in the day, I think my mum would have read a book by somebody called Spock, which was kind of one of the first books to do with attachment parenting, I believe. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But then, yes, when the internet started and all that information was available on Google, I kind of thought that it would make mums feel more secure and more well-informed, but actually it had completely the opposite effect. There was so much conflicting information, as you say, and misinformation, huge amount of misinformation out there about baby care and whether you should leave them to cry for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or not at all. And people are selling, books and packages and coaching stuff on the back of that, because there's nothing like conflict to get, good sales going.
Yeah.
And yes, I find when I'm working with a mum, I might give her, one little instruction in the day, and the next day I come in and she'll say, I read on Google last night something that completely contradicted what you told me yesterday. So I spend my life sort of fighting that and saying, look, I think the way I phrase it is, when you break it down, would you rather take advice from a completely blind screen? You don't know who's giving you that advice. So if you've gone onto a forum or a website and you're not 100% sure where that information's coming from, would you rather listen to that as gospel, or would you rather listen to me when you can see me in the flesh and you know about my history and you know about my references and you know about my background? Which one do you trust more? With forums, it's like going into school playground. You're going to have so many different people telling you so many different things. And if you look deeper on the website, if you've gone onto a website that says do this or don't do that, if you dig a little bit, you might find that website is sponsored by somebody who's trying to sell you baby food, or somebody who's trying to sell you a buggy, or somebody who's trying to sell you a cot. There's usually a bit more behind the curtain. So you've just got to be a bit careful where you get your information from.
Yeah, and you're right, Hattie. It is. I think when you read these things and you understand, you think, well, that's not how I did it. And I remember as a child, my mum telling me and passing on advice. It comes from love and care and wanting you to succeed. But when you read something, you think, well, hold on, is that fact? Is that because? And you're right. If you dig, and you haven't got time to dig, I talk to lots of parents who come and they want, nannies or maternity nannies. They want to bring, but they have a set, rule, like Montessori or forest schools, all of them things, and it's like everything. There is a different opinion, and there's people who go too far one way, then the other way, and it, like I said, when I talk to parents, it's love, trust, and you want someone who's got experience, who knows what they're doing, that you can rely on. And yes, they may have an opinion, and we value their opinion, because I'm not always right. Every day is a school day. I'm still learning stuff. And we look back now and things that we did as parents then were wrong, or were led to, and look like they've been proven wrong. So we got through by luck and love more than anything else. So I agree.
Simple things like putting babies to sleep on their tummies.
Yeah.
When I was a little girl, that's exactly where I slept. I was always put on my tummy, and my mum would say, well, it never did you any harm. It might have not done me harm, but it did lots of babies harm. Yeah. And they're still not sure what causes cot death. It is one of those things that sometimes it's massive organ failure. Sometimes it's as simple as they just stop breathing. They don't know what it is, but what they have, worked out is that there are certain things that we can do to decrease the risk of cot death. So now I have to deal with grandmothers quite a lot in my job, who are the same age as my mum would have been, where she alive, bless her, but coming in and sort of saying, well, we used to put them on their tummies. And so what I find, rather than sort of getting a bit, well, we don't do that anymore about it, I just have to take them off to one side and sort of show them a little bit of the research and the reasons why we don't do it anymore, just to give them a bit of an education, because these grannies can't remember what they had for lunch last Wednesday, but they seem to remember their own daughter or son's babyhood with minute detail. So you just have to kind of pull them up a little bit and say, look, let me give you some information. I'll give you some reading material, just so that you understand why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because it kind of drags them into the modern way of doing things.
Yeah, that's it.
And may or may not be better, but it's certainly improved the rates of SIDS.
Yeah, and that, again, that's what experience is all about. That's what you're doing. You haven't stopped. It's not, my baby, I think I've told you, he's 20 years old. So I've forgotten half the stuff that you learned then and you get on. But all you want to do is make sure that mum is happy, peace, and looked after, and baby's going. Listen, I've got. I could go on talking to you forever and ever and ever, and I'm sure we will, and we're going to start sharing this on social media. If there is any questions, they can come to you. And now we'll start it. They can come via Happiness. You're not inundated, but if they want to talk to you, is they're okay to come to us, and we can then put them forward to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
I have what I call a discovery call. So before I book anything at all, as I said to you earlier in the chat, that it's important that we get a good fit. So whatever their problems or challenges are, whether they already have a baby and they're struggling, or whether they're expecting a baby, first baby, and they're a bit anxious about stuff, we just have an initial free chat on the phone and just talk about, whether or not I think I'm going to be able to help them, and we just take it from there.
Okay,
So, yeah.
and the same with us, Hattie. It doesn't cost anyone to pick up the phone and talk to us, and we'll always help, and we'll always try and put them in the right direction of where they're looking for. And sometimes when you're a new parent, you don't know what the questions are. You're sort of like, I don't know how to explain it or say it or what to ask. So don't try and sugarcoat it or make it. Just tell us what you're feeling, tell us what you need, or what you're looking for, and any fears that you've got, apprehensions, and we'll try and help. Listen, I value your experience. I always do. I appreciate you doing this with me. And like I said, this could be one of many, or none at all, as the case may be. But we'll try and sort it. Have you got anything? Have you got anything to add, Hattie?
No, I just have one little phrase that I say to mums to be. I can explain a dive to you. I can tell you how beautiful a dive is. But ultimately, you just got to stick a tank on your back and jump in the water.
And speaking from experience.
And speaking from experience.
Okay. Well, thank you, Hattie. I appreciate your time and everything.